when we work with people with intellectual disability, it's absolutely paramount that we get to know that person well, that we can identify their abilities and perhaps also understand the limitations that are caused by their intellectual disability or any physical disability that goes alongside it, so that we can respond to those needs and support people well. And so, of course, that's absolutely important. In therapeutic horticulture, we tend to assess 3 different areas. We tend to think about how, through assessment, we can get to know someone. And so, through observation and through engaging them in gardening activities in our gardens, in our settings, we're able to observe what we need to know in relation to their physical skills and capacity, their cognitive skills and capacity, the way in which any sensorial impairment might be impacting on their ability to do things. And we generally do this through watching them garden. So we'll select a range of gardening activities that we know will help us observe fine motor movement, help us observe gross motor movement, balance, strength, stamina, and so on. We'll also be able to engage them in gardening activities that will help us understand how well they are able to concentrate, what their literacy level is like, what their numeracy level is like, they can problem solve, whether they can sequence, whether they can estimate, and all of these different cognitive skills are observable when we watch people gardening. And we also want to get to know people as people. So we want to know who they are as a personality, what they like, what they love, what they aren't so keen on, what hobbies and interests they have, whether they like to, how long does somebody like to keep trying on their own before it starts causing them frustration, as a way of knowing at what point with each individual we might interject and support and things like this. So getting to know them as personalities. And I think that within all of your organisations, you'll be fairly familiar with how you do this, and will have developed your own sort of approaches. The bit that's probably unique to therapeutic horticulture is we also want to understand a person's affinity for nature. And what we mean by that essentially is we want to understand people's likes and dislikes in gardens and nature. Are we working with somebody who doesn't like to get soil underneath their fingernails? Are we working with somebody who is going to start running all over the place because there are wasps around them? Are they from a family who have always grown vegetables, or are they as a family more ornamental in their gardening experience? And so by getting to know a bit more about their previous gardening experience, how their family use and connect with nature, all wrapped up, we call it affinity for nature. And this is probably the side of assessment that's a bit different to how organisations like yourselves already probably employ very purposeful and useful assessment processes to get to know people. So getting to know people, absolutely crucial, of course, but what people possibly don't spend so much time on, particularly when they're new to occupational approaches to therapy, is to realise how important it is to get to know the task really well as well. And our 2 main approaches to that, there are a number that occupational therapists use, but the ones that lend themselves quite well to therapeutic horticulture is task and skills analysis and qualities analysis. So when we do a task and skills analysis, what we essentially want to be able to understand is the sequence of a task, what are the steps we go through to complete a task, and then the skills required to complete each step. And by knowing this, then we're in a position to relate it to the individual and know where we might need to provide some adaptation or some support in order for that person to successfully engage in that activity. Is that all making sense so far? And so let's think about a really simple example here would be, let's think about how you would make a cup of tea. Okay, here we go. So the first step of making a cup of tea is to fill a kettle with water, step 1. Step 2, switch the kettle on. Step 3, wait for the kettle to boil. And while you're waiting, you might do step 4, which might be to put a tea bag in a cup. Step 5, pour boiling water over tea bag. Step 6, wait until it goes to the right color. Step 7, add what you might add to it: lemon, honey, in this country, milk. And then step 8, present or drink. Okay, so skills to do each part of that, each step of the sequence varies. And the skills you're utilizing will either be physical skills or cognitive skills. And so what would be the skills required to fill up a kettle with water? Any ideas? It helps sometimes to sort of pretend to do it. Motor skills are we using?
Hand. Moving the hand skills.
Grip.
Grip, okay.
A little bit of strength.
Strength.
And as we're holding the kettle in one hand, what are we doing with our other hand?
Pouring water.
Yeah, turning a tap on or something like this, which again is fine motor movement using our hand, little bit of grip, little bit of strength. But generally speaking, when we make a cup of tea, it means we're using both hands. So it's bilateral movement. Okay? And as the kettle fills up with water, what do we then do? It's hard to think of this because we do it when we function, when we're fully functional, we do these things without thinking. We don't recognize that they are skills. But what is it you're actually doing when you make a decision to switching off the tap? Because the first step of making a cup of tea when you're filling up a kettle of water, you are using your cognition to make a judgment of when to turn off the tap. When this gets heavy, you turn off tap. And so the skill to fill up a kettle of water is different to the skill required to wait for the tea to go the right color. What skill do you require to wait for tea to go the right color? So good. We might well draw on our experience. So we need some frame of reference for what a good color cup of tea looks like.
Yeah.
And recognize these skills because we use them without thinking. But for people with intellectual disability, or perhaps people recovering from other ill health or disability, we need to know them in order to be able to support adaptation. So breaking it down into its steps and then identifying the skills to complete each step, we're in a much better position to think through how we can put in place adaptation to support people to do it for themselves and to create that independence that we're looking for. The activity I'm going to do here for you is I'm going to pot up a plant. So I'm going to take this plant out of the smaller pot and put it into a big pot to give it more room to grow. So the first step we will have done is collected all of our materials. So often, almost every activity begins with a step that might be something like collect everything you need. Okay? And sometimes that step of the task is one of the most complex. So to collect all we needed here, we needed some strength and some grip to take compost out of a bin and place it into our tray here. Okay? We needed some memory in order to be able to know where to go and get these empty pots. And we also need some horticultural knowledge to understand when a plant could benefit from being potted up. Okay, so step 1, collect everything you need. Step 2, prepare your workstation. So arrange yourself to make the task easy. And again, this requires a reasonable amount of cognitive skills and maybe little bits of movement of our arms and so on. So that's step 1 and then step 2. See if you can now begin to write down the different steps I do. Lovely. So hopefully you were able to follow what I was doing, and hopefully you were able to recognize some of the different steps that I took to pot up my plant. So anyone can start us off. After setting out my workspace, what was the next thing I did? Step 3, put 1 and a bit handfuls of compost into big pot. And then what did I do after that? Remove small plant from big pot, which requires me to squeeze gently in order to loosen the pot plant and then place it down.
Inside the bigger.
Inside the tray, yes. Pot into the big pot.
Yeah, I said before.
And then I began to fill up around the little pot. The next step, once I filled it up, remove little pot to create hole for new plant to go into. Next step, little bit more compost, and then I'm complete. Okay. Now, when we do this task in the garden, we might do this to maybe, 6, 7, 10 plants at a time. And so we might repeat some of those steps before we eventually get to the final step of the task, which is a step that we have at the end of most tasks. So when we think about this approach to understanding activity, to deepening our understanding of activity, it's best to at first assume that somebody can be completely independent. Okay, so we sort of do this bit of thinking separate to our thinking about the individual at first, and then we put the two together. If we approach it by not thinking that a person can be fully independent, then there's a chance that we make presumptions about people's inability and oversimplify the task and remove the developmental opportunity, but also perhaps remove some of that person's independence. And so when you're thinking through this task, it's best to think about how you would normally do it first. Don't mix up thinking about the person with intellectual disability at this stage. Think, okay, how does that task normally get complete? Which should involve step 1, collecting everything you need, as well as the last step, tidy everything away.